A U.S. judge has ruled in favor of the Associated Press in a landmark case that has significant implications for press freedom in the United States. This ruling comes at a crucial time when the role of the media is under intense scrutiny and pressure. The case centered around the Trump administration's attempts to restrict AP journalists from performing their duties, which many saw as an attack on the First Amendment rights of the press. The judge's decision is a clear statement that such restrictions are unacceptable in a democratic society. The judge said that the Trump White House cannot restrict AP journalists from doing their jobs, emphasizing that the freedom of the press is a cornerstone of American democracy. This decision reinforces the idea that the government should not interfere with the media's ability to report the news. This is a big win for journalists and the public's right to know. It ensures that reporters can continue to provide the public with the information they need to make informed decisions. The ruling is a testament to the importance of a free and independent press in holding those in power accountable. The ruling means AP reporters can once again cover the White House freely, without fear of unjust restrictions or reprisals. This freedom is essential for journalists to perform their duties effectively and to keep the public informed about the actions of their government. They can attend press conferences, ask tough questions, and seek the truth without being hindered by political agendas. This access is crucial for transparency and accountability in government. Travel on Air Force One and accompany the president on important trips, ensuring that the public is kept informed about the administration's activities both domestically and internationally, and report on important events, providing comprehensive coverage that helps the public understand the significance of these events and their impact on society. This decision upholds the essential role of a free press in a democracy. It sends a strong message that attempts to silence the media will not be tolerated, and that the press must be allowed to operate without undue interference. This ruling is a reminder that the government cannot silence the press. It underscores the importance of protecting the rights of journalists to report the news without fear of censorship or retaliation. It also shows that journalists are willing to fight for their rights and the public's right to information. This victory is not just for the Associated Press, but for all journalists who strive to uphold the principles of a free and independent press. It is a reaffirmation of the vital role that journalism plays in a healthy democracy. Why did the Trump White House restrict AP journalists in the first place? It all started with a disagreement over what to call a body of water. President Trump issued an executive order renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. The AP, like many other news organizations, continued to use the widely accepted name Gulf of Mexico. The White House didn't like that the AP wouldn't use the new name. They decided to punish the AP by restricting their access to the White House. This was a clear attempt to control the press and dictate what they could report. Judge McFadden, who made the ruling, said the White House violated the First Amendment. The First Amendment is a very important part of the U.S. Constitution. It protects freedom of the press. Judge McFadden said the government can't prevent journalists from reporting just because they don't like what they say. He said that restricting access because of a disagreement over a name is not allowed. This ruling reaffirms that the government cannot control what journalists write or say. It's a crucial victory for press freedom and the public's right to unbiased information. The Associated Press was not going to accept the White House restrictions without a fight. The restrictions were seen as an unprecedented move to control the narrative and limit the freedom of the press. Journalists at the AP were determined to stand up for their rights and the principles of free speech. They took the matter to court, filing a lawsuit against 3 senior aides of President Trump. The legal battle was not just about access. It was about setting a precedent for how the press could be treated by the government. The AP's legal team worked tirelessly, gathering evidence and preparing their arguments. The AP argued that the White House's actions were a direct attack on the First Amendment. They emphasized that a free press is essential for a functioning democracy, and any attempt to undermine it must be challenged. The case attracted significant media attention, with many other news organizations expressing their support for the AP. They said that restricting their access because they wouldn't use the president's preferred name for the Gulf of Mexico was unconstitutional. The term Gulf of Mexico had become a contentious issue, with the administration insisting on a different nomenclature that the AP refused to adopt. This, they argued, was a clear case of viewpoint discrimination. the Trump administration defended their actions by saying that the AP had no inherent right to special access to the White House. They argued that the press must adhere to certain guidelines and that the administration had the authority to set those guidelines. The administration's legal team presented their case, emphasizing the need for order and respect for the office of the president. However, Judge McFadden ultimately sided with the AP, finding that the restrictions were indeed based on viewpoint discrimination. The ruling was hailed as a victory for press freedom, reinforcing the idea that the government cannot control the narrative by restricting access based on the content of the reporting. Journalists celebrated the decision, seeing it as a reaffirmation of their role as watchdogs of democracy. Section 5. Hindered reporting and censorship concerns. In recent years, the relationship between the press and the White House has become increasingly strained. Journalists have faced numerous obstacles that hinder their ability to report accurately and promptly. AP journalists said the restrictions made it much harder for them to do their jobs. These restrictions included limited access to press briefings, reduced opportunities to ask questions, and even outright bans from certain events. The press corps found themselves struggling to gather the information they needed to keep the public informed. They couldn't attend important press briefings or travel with the president. This lack of access meant that they were often left in the dark about key decisions and policies. The inability to travel with the president also meant missing out on crucial moments that could shape public opinion and policy. This meant they couldn't report on events as they happened. Timely reporting is essential in the fast-paced world of news, and these delays compromise the quality and relevance of the information being shared with the public. The waiting game outside the White House became a frustrating routine for many journalists. Other journalists worried that the White House would restrict them too, if they wrote something the president didn't like. This created an atmosphere of fear and self-censorship, where reporters hesitated to cover controversial topics or ask tough questions. The chilling effect on journalism was palpable, as the threat of losing access loomed over every press briefing and article. This kind of censorship is a serious threat to a free press. The First Amendment guarantees the freedom of the press, but these restrictions undermine that fundamental right. Legal battles have ensued, with media organizations fighting to protect their ability to report without interference. The courts have become a battleground for press freedom, as journalists seek to hold the government accountable. The restrictions on AP journalists highlighted the importance of a free and independent press. Without the ability to report freely, the press cannot serve its role as a watchdog for democracy. The public relies on journalists to provide accurate and unbiased information, and any attempt to stifle that is a direct attack on democratic principles. When journalists are prevented from doing their jobs, it's the public who lose out on vital information. The flow of information is essential for an informed citizenry, and any disruption to that flow has far-reaching consequences. The role of the press in a democratic society cannot be overstated, and it is imperative that journalists are allowed to work without fear of censorship or retribution. Section 6. Voices of Support and Silence. The AP celebrated the judge's ruling. They said it was a victory for press freedom and the public's right to know. Press freedom groups across the country also praised the decision. The White House Correspondents Association, a group that represents journalists, also spoke out against the restrictions. They said it was a clear attempt to control the press and prevent them from holding the government accountable. The White House, however, remained silent and did not comment on the ruling. Their lack of response speaks volumes and raises concerns about their commitment to a free and open press. Section 7. The fight continues. The case is not over yet. The Trump administration could appeal the judge's ruling to a higher court. This means the fight for AP journalists' access could continue for a long time. The outcome of this case is important for the future of press freedom in the United States. If the Trump administration wins, it could have a chilling effect on journalists across the country. However, the AP has vowed to keep fighting for their rights and the public's right to know. The resilience of journalists in the face of such challenges is crucial for upholding democratic values. Section 8. A precedent for the future. This case is about more than just the Associated Press. It sets a precedent for how the government can treat journalists in the future. If the government can restrict one news organization's access because they don't like their reporting, they could do it to others. This ruling is a reminder that a free press is essential for a healthy democracy. The public needs access to accurate and unbiased information to hold their leaders accountable. Section 9. Safeguarding press freedom. It is crucial to protect the rights of journalists to report freely without fear of censorship or reprisal. The press acts as a watchdog, holding those in power accountable and informing the public. When the government attempts to silence or control the press, it undermines democratic principles and erodes public trust. We must all remain vigilant in safeguarding press freedom and ensuring that journalists can continue to do their vital work without interference. The future of a well-informed and engaged citizenry depends on it.